Welcome to today's session for the Love Breakthrough Virtual Retreat. One of our most popular, most viewed, most engaged speakers across all of the series, who I always thoroughly enjoy interviewing and always shares wisdom that I just don't hear from anywhere else, that really, really provides so much value for everyone who's listening. I can't wait to introduce you once again to the beautiful Diana. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me and just for that beautiful introduction. I'm like, oh, my heart is swelling.
Now, one of the things that you speak a lot about, which I think is really beautiful and blends in with the archetype of who it is that we would feel really confident stepping forward to in dating, in relationships, and in life, is this concept of sovereignty. And I'd love for you to share why this word in particular and what it means and how we can embody that for a beautiful experience in our love life moving forward.
Sovereignty, honestly, it saved my life in so many ways. When I really learned to call on my personal power and my personal responsibility in a way that is so radical, I completely shifted my entire reality. I shifted the kind of men I was calling in. I called in my partner in the most serendipitous way. And to this day, whenever we find ourselves, whether it's my partner and I or us with our children, and we find ourselves in this like corner, we feel stuck. Something's not going the way I wanted to, let's say, or we wanted to. It's the most natural human tendency to look outside and say, but so and so isn't doing this thing. So it's hard for me. But my child isn't acting this way. So I'm feeling triggered. But my partner isn't showing up for me. So it's hard to be loving. And I understand that. And there is truth in that. And it is also a telltale sign of being in your immature inner child. When I ask my son, he's almost 6, what happened? Why did you hit your sister? Well, because Sophia, it's always the first thing. Because Sophia, because you did, because Papa did. It's always immediately projecting out. And it's totally natural. He hasn't developed that skill of that radical personal responsibility. I know that the people in your life have room to change. And what's your part? Sometimes your part is the way you speak, the words you use trigger a certain reaction in the person you're relating to. And so then they do something hurtful, then you do something hurtful, and you're in a cycle. Sometimes taking personal responsibility is, I am trying to change someone. I need to accept them as they are. Sometimes personal responsibility is, this relationship doesn't line up for me. It's not aligned for me. My responsibility here is to leave, is to honor my standards, to honor my boundaries. But where we leak the most energy, and I see it time and time and time and time again, is waiting for someone else to change. And I understand this gets nuanced and complex in deep relationships, when you're in a marriage or a deep committed partnership where you have a family, just to just leave is not, it's not simple or easy. But I invite you and challenge you to still look at, where am I waiting for my partner to change instead of cleaning up my side of the street? What's still here for me? Like, I noticed, for example, I would get upset when my husband would be snappy with our son. And I want to blame him for being snappy with our son. When I really took on the lens of sovereignty and just decided to observe this more objectively, what I saw was, when I ask my partner to do something and I have this rushed or irritated or some kind of tone, then he immediately snaps at our child. So even this morning it happened. I said, hey, can you get Cedric ready for this? And so right away he goes, Cedric, come here. Da, da, da. And I'm like, oh, I created the ripple effect. If I could just be like, hey, when you have a moment, can you do that? And my energy is relaxed. Suddenly my partner's energy is relaxed. And the way he speaks to our child is totally different. So I actually have so much power, and I will dare to say something really bold. we women have an immense amount of power in our relationships. We are actually like the thermometer, and everyone sort of reflects how we feel. I see it time and time again in our home. When something is off, when something is array, and I come back to myself and back into my sovereignty and choosing for myself, where am I leaking energy? Where am I projecting onto others? Where am I waiting for others to change? What's still for me? Where and what's for me to stretch into? Whenever I do that, everyone corrects, like almost immediately. And it's not about blame. I'm not blaming myself. I want to be really clear. Responsibility and sovereignty is not self-blame. It's self-empowerment. It's coming back to my actual power, my true power. And if it doesn't change anything in my outer reality, which is so unlikely, I'm still becoming more of myself through the process anyway. So when women say, why do I have to do all the work? I'm like, of course you don't have to do all the work. But this is what's on your side. And you want to focus so much what's on the other person's side. And that is leaving you drained.
I can hear the whisper of 1,000 voices, Diana, saying, yeah, I can see myself being able to claim my power if I'm in a relationship. I can understand where you're coming from. And this is amazing, by the way. How do we apply this as a single woman?
Yes. Okay. Sovereignty and how you feel around being single, right? The narratives you tell yourself about why you're single and what it is to be single and what it means to be single. So that personal power, how do I want to reframe this for myself? Or do I just want to allow myself to feel this and then choose a different way of feeling? Sovereignty in the kind of people I give my time and energy to. Sovereignty in the way I show up on dates, the way I speak my truth, the way I speak my standards, the way I speak my boundaries. The grace I give myself when I make a mistake. How I show up in an uncomfortable conversation, how I initiate an uncomfortable conversation, a courageous conversation. Sovereignty to leave. Wherever in your life you are subtly, even in the most subtle ways, feeling like a victim, that's an invitation for deeper sovereignty. What is here for you? Why do you find yourself in this pattern over and over again? How do you find yourself continuously here? What is here for you? And this can be incredibly challenging to do with no support. And so I would encourage you, whatever support looks like for you, it can be a group of friends, it can be a coach, it can be a therapist, it can be another modality worker, someone who can help you hold that mirror for yourself with a loving gaze, not to make yourself wrong, but to lift yourself up. I keep dating these kind of men. I keep finding myself in this situation over and over. I keep feeling this thing in my body over and over. What do I want to do about it? How do I want to shift that? If I could adopt for even 1 minute the belief that everything is happening for me, what is here for me. 2 weeks prior to middle of last week, we were in a very intense energy in our home. My son started elementary school. His anxiety is through the roof. He's being extremely loud, destructive, like very intense in our home. And the first week I was like, oh, I'm proud of myself. I'm not like internalizing this in any way. As we moved into the second week, I started to like get into a hole and started to feel, I started to track that there were thoughts that were victim thoughts. Why is it like this for us? I see my friends, their kids have started school. Their kids seem really happy and excited about starting school. Why did we have to go through this? That's my cue. I'm slipping out of sovereignty. I'm starting to feel bad for myself. And the truth is, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to feel bad for myself. It doesn't feel good to have thoughts like, why does this keep happening to me? Why is it this way for me and it's not this way for others? feels good in some kind of way. If you've ever read the book Existential Kink, it's like it's kinky almost in a way to have that thought because it's so familiar, but it's so disempowering. And I kid you not, I don't even, I took a day for myself to go to the spa, and I made a decision that day that I was moving back into sovereignty, and I was choosing to see that this is happening for me to take me into deeper embodiment of sovereignty before I teach my class in a few weeks. And I kid you not, I came home that day, and it's been now a week exactly, and the energy in our home completely shifted in an instant. I'm also well practiced at this.
I think really one of the very few strategies that we end up acquiring with these types of situations is turning to our friends or family or the people that we would normally count on and sharing this experience with them and getting some kind of connection through sympathy or understanding. And that alleviates that feeling temporarily, but it also still doesn't get you out of the feeling of ultimately of it not feeling good. So, from a practical perspective, then, what would we do instead if we didn't ring our girlfriend and say, "Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening at the moment. This is really difficult." And she's like, "Oh, it is, you know."
I would say first give yourself some time to feel that you're feeling stuck. Like, holy crap, this feels heavy. I feel stuck. And I cried several times over those 2 weeks. And I didn't call anyone to cry. I just cried. Not that there's anything wrong with calling people to cry. I definitely cried a few times to my partner as well. But there was a lot of just time for myself and short bursts of feeling the feeling of I feel really stuck right now, and this feels heavy, and this feels I just wish I wasn't here. I wish this wasn't happening. And it feels like I'm totally, if not in my control. I had every reason to believe it's not in my control. It's someone else having an experience. And for in that time, my mindset was now my son's projecting his feelings onto me. And my life is hard right now because of him. It's very easy for me to go there. So feeling the feelings and then literally coming back to the one question. And I promise you, devote your life to this question, your whole life will change. What is here for me? What am I doing? What's the commitment I'm making to myself? If this is here for me to take me for, my example was this is like a opportunity to come into deeper sovereignty before I teach this class. I'm being really like challenged in these 2 weeks. That's what I decided was here for me. That's what felt true for me. So then what do I want to do about that? Okay, what I want to do is like notice how I am any ways I'm contributing to this dynamic, I'm closing those holes. I'm plugging those holes one by one. So feeling what you feel, allowing space for that to exist, and coming back to what is here for me. How do I want to shift it? Where is my power here?
I love the sensitivity of that because I see either a lack of awareness, like you said, staying in that inner child, staying in that sort of the victim space, or at the opposite side, how did I manifest this? This is my fault. So I love the sensitivity around just asking the question. It's like the curiosity that really brings it into a sense of self-honoring, doesn't it?
Yes. And I want to be so transparent that, over the decades of my life, I've also been deep in devotion to listening to myself. And I've had lots of mentors and spiritual mentors and different modalities that I've worked with and therapists. And so it's available for me to ask that question. And so if it's not so available for you to ask that question and be with that with yourself, maybe ask that question in the space with someone holding you so that you don't go into like you don't re-traumatize yourself or go into self-blame or this is all my fault. That I really want to be so clear, nothing is your fault, but there is power for you in whatever is happening. There's an invitation to go deeper in an aspect of your growth, of your life, of your mindset, of your embodiment. You know, like I've practiced this. And so it's more readily available, and it will be for you too.
For all the single ladies that are watching and feel as though this has been really beneficial and they want to start to put that into practice, is there any other guidance, any other advice, any other techniques that you might suggest would complement this?
I'm wondering if this could be a moment to do a little guided visualization practice, especially if we're going to speak more to the single women who are desiring to call in a partner. And maybe there is any feeling of lack, or it's out of reach, or it never stays, or it never works out. And so, you know, we get into that slump and we want to rise again. For whoever is watching, if it's available to you to either close your eyes or just have a soft gaze. And what you are desiring to manifest, I'll just say for clarity in this space, let's say a partner, could visualize even just the feeling or the outline or some kind of way to visualize this person and see them, let's say, standing 12 feet in front of you. And so hold that image. This person is 12 feet ahead of you. And now you see him slowly and steadily walking his way towards you. Wherever you even have the slightest sense of safety in your body, I want you to hold that feeling of safety and see if you can let it live and maybe even amplify as he walks towards you, holding the feeling of safety. And with a deep breath, you now see him standing right in front of you, face to face. Hold the feeling of safety. You might even hold your hands, or you might put your hand on his face. Deep breath as you hold that feeling of safety. Now you see him turn around and slowly and steadily walk away. And you are still holding that feeling of safety, knowing he's not leaving forever, he's just going somewhere. And he's walking away until you see him drift off into space. You no longer see him anymore. And you're standing here and you're holding that feeling of being safe. And if it's available for you, you might even invite a smile across your face. Surprised, proud, anchored, grateful for your capacity to hold that feeling of being safe in closeness and in separation. And with a deep breath, I invite you to open your eyes. And if we were in a space together, I'd say, tell me what you saw. So I'll invite you to maybe write it in a journal, but I'd love to hear if you want to share something you saw.
Wow, is all I can say. And I think for those of us that are familiar with visualizing or doing guided experiences in meditation, often when it comes to imagining a soulmate, the focus is more on attraction and passion and intensity and excitement. And there's just so many women that I feel would really benefit, myself included. That was really powerful, to instead really sink into that feeling of being safe. And it's because it's such a different feeling, but in the best possible way. Thank you so much for that. That was beautiful.
You are so welcome. I'm always amazed at how powerful that visualization is. It's so short and so potent. And again, bringing in that neutrality and groundedness with and without.
All the girls that identify with having anxious attachment symptoms.
I have some women who I was doing this yesterday and they said, oh, surprisingly, like when he came up close, I was way more anxious than when he walked away. I was relieved when he walked away. So there's a lot to work with there. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So beautiful. So beautiful. Thank you. I know that most of you girls listening have been in the work, have been involved in self-development work, have been open to growth as far as and healing as far as bringing in a conscious partnership, becoming a better partner, becoming a better partner for yourself.
We can swing from one side of the pendulum to the other, right? We can really swing in extremes. And we actually tend to do that a lot until we find the sort of middle balance. So the extremes here is, to give some context, is like on this side, let's say, is a woman who is really strong in her boundaries, really, like you said the word highly discerning, more avoidant in her attachment style, more avoidant in the way she relates, really holding high standards, but to the point of it almost feeling like entitlement. And then we see women swing to the other end of the spectrum, the other extreme, holding no boundaries, people pleasing, performing, very little discernment, overly available, more anxious in their attachment. And if I was to sort of nail down what it is we would love to bring, all of you watching today, is this space in the middle where you feel safe with and safe without, in your security, tuning into your body to see what is really true for you. And when we can get honest with ourselves about the energy with which we do things with, then there's no more need for rules. There's no need for black and white. There's really what's true for you.
I was just thinking about some of the really common labels that people put on partners in relationships. So things like, oh, she's overly needy, or she's too picky, or she's a people pleaser, or, she's avoidant, or we have all of these labels, and we're aware I shouldn't be too much of this and I shouldn't be too much of that. We're kind of aware that there is a nuanced place in the middle and a balance. But for a lot of us, it's really hard to see outside of our own experience. I'd love for you to share your thoughts on how do we even know where we sit.
Mm-hmm. Okay, first of all, I'd love to start with, can we shift from any labels, especially when you're speaking of yourself, but really anyone, but when you're speaking of yourself, and instead of saying, I am anxiously attached, I am avoidant, I am a giver, I am a people pleaser, can we create some space there and say, I have tendencies to be, I have anxious tendencies, I have avoidant tendencies, or even better yet, I have had anxious tendencies, I have had avoidant ones, so that we can even leave space for that narrative to change. And also know that, especially when we're talking about attachment styles, there's no one way. You might find yourself feeling more anxious with one person, feeling more avoidant with another. It can be seasonal, different times in your life. Like, there's so much movement there possible. And I really want to invite anybody who's watching, if you are attaching yourself to any label, to release that and create some space, even starting with saying things like, I'm feeling this way versus I am sad, for example. No, you are not. You are Pita, you are Diana, you are not sad. You are feeling sad. So if we want to start to even gauge for ourselves, like, what is my truth here? I would invite you to really look back on your romantic experiences. How did you show up? What were the common qualities within yourself that you consistently have seen across most relationships? What are the consistent qualities you've seen in the partners you've chosen? What are the consistent qualities of the relationship and the way you two related together? How did those relationships end? How do your relationships start? How do you mostly feel in your relationships? And you will start to see that there is a thread. And in that thread, you might notice, oh, I tend to give a lot in my relationships, and then I feel resentful about it. Or my partners always tell me it's hard to read me and that they don't feel close to me. And then I notice the connection starts waning, and then it sort of just fizzles away. What are those common threads? And a beautiful practice that I love doing with clients, and you can even try doing this with yourself, is, or with a friend, write down a few statements like, love is, relationships are, men are, for me to feel safe in love, I must, for me to have love, I must, I will have love when. And fill in those blanks without thinking about it too much, without using too much of your conscious mind, so that your subconscious has a chance to speak its truth. So often when I do this exercise with my clients, it almost always shows up. In order for me to have love, I must give. In order for me to have love, I must perform. It almost consistently comes through for every single one of the women that I work with. And so start to just, tap into what are those subconscious beliefs, those subconscious ways you think that's the path to experiencing love. Because once you're aware of that, then whenever you notice the performing showing up, it's like, oh, here I am performing. What is that showing me about how I'm feeling right now? How do I want to show up instead? Can I put down the performance, center back into myself, and then decide what it is I want to do from there? Even inside of my business, I'm often doing this. Oh, I'm sending this message. Why am I sending this message? Where is it coming from? Is there a lack? And that's where this message is coming from? Or is it from total overflow and connection? Then there are no rules. The rules literally just melt away because you get to be honest with about the energy with which you are doing things and showing up. There's so little emphasis on feeling neutral. We're always talking about feeling excited and feeling lit up and feeling, and I actually want to invite that there is something really beautiful about a neutral feeling, a stable, relaxed, nurtured nervous system that feels a healthy level of detachment, that isn't overly excited, right? Fear and excitement, two sides of the same coin. So is it really fear? It might be. Your excitement might be fear masked as joy, for example. So like you want to just be operating with this more leveled, neutral, grounded state of being.
I'd love to just circle back for a moment to point out how you've encouraged everyone to really reflect on their own personal experience, because one of the things I think that a lot of us do is take on a self-perception or an identity in relationships that we've heard other people say about us. Oh, you're too nice, or oh, you're too this, or oh, we've heard friends, or maybe it's even something we've heard family members say about us for a really long time. And we can often bring that into our perception of what's happening in a relationship, but it might not even necessarily be our truth anymore.
Yes, again, it's creating that space of challenging, like, is this okay? Maybe this is how I've been. How do I feel about that way? Do I like being the nice girl? Does that feel powerful for me? Or does it feel like I'm sort of leaking my energy, outsourcing my power? Because sure, maybe I'm nice, but I'm also many other things too. Right? I look at my daughter and it's so incredible to watch her because right now, she's untouched by the conditioning of life, and she's just under 2, and she's all the things. She is so sassy. She's so sweet. She's so kind. She can be so selfish. She can be so cooperative. She can be so strong-headed, and it's just amazing to see her. Like pretending to feed her dolls one moment, and then turning around and picking up a superhero and being like, well, she's all the things. She's multifaceted. And so I want to invite you to look at how you are truly multifaceted, and any label that you're living under might be limiting you. Whether you're the super responsible one, or the super nice one, or the super independent one, or the super giving one. Does that really feel satisfying for you?
What about all the women that just made me think of it then when you were describing your daughter, which is so beautiful, but I think there can be a tendency when we're fully expressed in all of those different ways to start getting feedback of you're too much, you're too much. So what about for all the women that have heard that are now actually wondering, when we talk about the nuances of being full on or being more reserved as another polarity, for example,
Yeah.
where do I go with that self-monitoring versus just actually being fine? If I'm too much for some people, that's okay.
There are two things that I wanna offer. There is a reason we disassociate from our bodies. So have so much grace for yourself if it's hard for you to tune into how your body feels. We've all had traumas, big and small, that we protect ourselves by dissociating from the feelings in our body. So it can be quite a journey to come back there, but I would invite you to small practices regularly every day, several times a day, 30 seconds, a minute, connecting to your breath, noticing how you feel in your body, because your body will actually tell you. If your heart is racing, it might be that you are in such excitement, even you feel like you're too much for yourself. Right? And then there might be, when you really tune into your body, you're like, there are some things I want to express. So I'm actually playing in my own not enoughness. I'm actually not releasing what wants to be released. So the more we can tune into what is the feeling happening in my body right now, the more you can be honest. I actually feel totally relaxed in this way of being. This is really me. So if it's too much or too little for you, that's about you, not about me. That's not on my side of the street. You get to decide if this is too much for you, don't stick around. And this is about sourcing that deep, deep, deep sense of personal sovereignty and responsibility. The other thing I would really invite as like a playful thing, anything you've ever been told or you felt, I'm too X, whatever it is, fill in the blank. I'm too loud. I'm too spontaneous. I'm too whatever. First, tune into, how do I, Diana, feel about that for myself? And then what else am I? Sure, I'm really loud. I also really know how to listen. I also really know how to tune in to people's energy. So, people tell me you're so soft spoken, which is true. And I also can really speak powerfully and clearly and directly. I'm not one thing. And that's how I balance it for myself. So sometimes it's really just about painting the picture and doing some journaling exercises, or maybe for you, you're more visual and you actually literally want to paint a picture of what are all the aspects of you so that you can see and sense and feel your own wholeness. Be mindful of taking on labels. If you are being loud because, I'm just using loud as an example, because people have told you you're so loud, so now you are just a loud person. Is that what you want? If it's not, then what do you want to invite as a balancing practice? Do you want to invite in more meditation, more stillness? Practice being someone who in conversation actually listens more. How do you invite your own wholeness so that you know you feel just right for you? And those who resonate will be drawn to that energy, and those who don't will go away. And that's perfect.
I noticed that there's still a tendency, even with this self-reflection, what do I want? I even noticed it crossing my own mind as we were talking about it. So I'm imagining that some of the other girls are thinking the same, that there's also a second question going on of what's most palatable to my ideal partner. There's still this kind of consideration of,
Yes, I think that's something to take into consideration. Not only from would my partner, my potential partner like this, but then is that who I want to be with? So when you imagine who your ideal partner is, the kind of qualities that complement, and I, this is something like there are really layers to this visioning that I love to take people through. Like, who is your complement? So rather than calling in someone exactly like you, someone who is, the yang to your yin, for example. So as you are putting, together this feeling, this imagery, so that you can visualize and sense into the person you're calling in, imagining what about you would they recognize as their person, and then get honest with yourself. Okay, well, maybe I'm a little too harsh in my communication, for example. Maybe I'm a little too strong in my communication, or direct in my communication, and that wouldn't be attractive to my potential partner, the one that I want to call in. That wouldn't be something that he feels at ease with. So then there's a decision to make. Is that the kind of person you want to be with? If yes, then this is your growth edge. This is part of your journey. Learning how to also listen, learning how to also be more gentle in your communication. So, for example, I had a client when she was doing a visioning exercise with me. She said, okay, I'm visualizing myself in my beautiful home with my partner, and we have this many kids, and I'm feeling so relaxed. And I like just really painting this picture of her feeling totally at ease in her home, and very present with her kids, very present with herself, very present with her partner. Beautiful. Huge gap from how she's showing up today. Stressed, anxious, overwhelmed, working around the clock, not sleeping well, rushing through everything. So, of course, this person who you see over here in your vision can't recognize you today. Even if he's in your workplace, he won't recognize you, that you could be someone for him, because you're visualizing this very relaxed life over here. That's not who you're being today. How is he supposed to look at you today and say, oh, that could be the woman that I lived this very relaxed life with? It doesn't match. So again, it's that honesty. Is that the kind of person you want to be with? If yes, not the kind of person you think you should be with, the kind of person you desire to be with. If yes, then here are some gaps for you to lovingly close and pay attention to, and stretch yourself to try new ways.
it's almost like we are reverse engineering who our ideal partner's ideal partner would be.
Yes. Yes. And without getting too much in your head about it, right? It's like, this is why also when you're dreaming up your ideal partner, thinking of that person as your complement, will support you so much so that you are not feeling like you have to change these things about yourself. It's like if these are the parts of you that you really love and you want to carry them through into your all your relationships, then who's the kind of person that can match with you as well? So not just who do I have to be, but who do they need to be to match well with you and your life and what you desire. And that's what I would really invite, especially for those of you watching who tend to have more anxious tendencies and want to conform to every partner that you're with and sort of take their shape. We actually want to reverse that, flip that script and say, who would match well with?
Very important, and not the easiest thing to do for someone who is then very, very aware, as us anxious attachment styles are, that that can then potentially create a separation between you and the person that you're with.
Yeah.
And that's obviously what we're most scared of, right?
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience before we wrap up? And then we're also going to talk about how to connect with you, what you've got coming up.
Yes, I'd love that. I think the piece I want to leave you with is really just this anchor, this reminder to like relinquish any idea of rules or what's too much, what's not enough. Can I call? Can I text? I have one client say asking, is it too much to bake him this thing that he really likes? And it's like, can you release all of that heady overthinking and simply come back to, I will be honest with myself about the energy with which I'm doing it. If I'm in overflow and I'm just in connection and I'm sending a message to say, thinking of you, that's beautiful. Or am I in lack and performing and grasping and trying to remind this person that I exist? Be honest with the energy and let the rest flow. And again, just in that honesty of your energy, already there you are being sovereign, owning what's truly happening, owning your true intentions. And when the intentions don't align with abundance and healthy detachment, then you let go of that action. Okay, in terms of what I have coming up, I mean, there's always so much. I'll be hosting a 4-day event called Sovereign Love. There are always replays that are accessible as well. If we have our portal of love that is open for all women at any time. It's really a space to come in, and that's where you're owning your voice and your standards, and you're opening your heart. And it's such a beautiful, abundant space. It's a group, and you can always get in touch with me to get into the details of that. And just in terms of connecting, Instagram is a great place. So Diana Eskander _ my Facebook group, Fearless Love with Diana, is a great place, or my website, dianaeskander.com.
Beautiful. All of those are linked up directly below the video as well. And one of the things I'd also love to recognize you for, Diana, is the beautiful emails, the beautiful content, the beautiful sentiments, the beautiful insights, the beautiful shares that you send out to your community via email. How can the ladies get access to that?
Yeah, great question. So on my website, you scroll down to the bottom, there's a field to enter your name, and you'll receive usually weekly, or sometimes a few more times, but they're quite insightful. They're quite value packed. So I'm sure you'll love receiving those.
In some ways, I'm kind of sad that this will be our last season in this event and the last of these interviews. You touched a little bit on courageous communication. We've had some beautiful conversations in recent years about communication, really deep dive and some phenomenal things. So a little bit of a teaser, there will be access to some of our past conversations coming up and made available at the end of this event.
I think there was also the free gift that is available for you as well through this. So it's a 4-part video series. So you'll see my face 4 days in a row, with really deepening in your feminine in love and relationships, and what that looks like. So I think each video is something like 10 minutes. So you'll have like a total of 40 minutes between the 4 days to get access to that.
Thank you so much. That's all linked up below, ladies, if you'd like to access that. And I really encourage you to take advantage of every piece of wisdom that Diana shares and become part of her community as well. It's been such a gift to have you as part of this event. Such a beautiful soul. And thank you. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And I will see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.
Bye.